Hey y'all, Michelle Raza here with the Finding Yourself Book Club, and today we're going to deviate just a little bit from our normal self-help works to do our Science Fiction Saturday series, which is just a little bit of fun and nothing really to do with anything else we're talking about. So we've been covering Robert Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land. Last time we read chapters 1 and 2, so we'll continue on where we left off. Thanks for being here with me today. Chapter 3. Captain William Van Tromp was a man of humanity and good sense. He radioed ahead. My passenger must not, repeat, must not be subjected to the strain of a public reception. Provide low-G shuttle, stretcher, and ambulance service, and armed guard. He sent his ship's surgeon, Dr. Nelson, along to make sure that Valentine Michael Smith was installed in a suite in Bethesda Medical Center, transferred gently into a hydraulic bed, and protected from outside contact by Marine guards. Van Tromp himself went to an extraordinary session of the Federation High Council. At the moment when Valentine Michael Smith was being lifted into the bed, the High Minister for Science was saying testily, "Granted, Captain, that your authority as military commander of what was nevertheless primarily a scientific expedition gives you the right to order unusual medical service to protect a person temporarily in your charge, I do not see why you now presume to interfere with the proper functions of my department. Why, Smith is a veritable treasure trove of scientific information." "Yes, I suppose he is, sir." "Then why?" The science minister broke off and turned to the High Minister for Peace and Military Security. "David, this matter is obviously now in my jurisdiction. Will you issue the necessary instructions to your people? After all, one can't keep the persons of the caliber of Professor Kennedy and Dr. Okajima, to mention just two, cooling their heels indefinitely. They won't stand for it." The peace minister did not answer, but glanced inquiringly at Captain Von Tromp. The captain shook his head. "No, sir." "Why not?" demanded the science minister. "You have admitted that he isn't sick." "Give the captain a chance to explain, Pierre," the peace minister advised. "Well, Captain?" "Smith isn't sick, sir," Captain Van Tromp said to the peace minister, "but he isn't well either. He has never before been in a one-gravity field. He now weighs more than 2.5 times what he is used to, and his muscles aren't up to it. He's not used to Earth normal air pressure. He's not used to anything, and the strain is likely to be too much for him. Hell's bells, gentlemen. I'm dog-tired myself just from being at 1G again, and I was born on this planet." The science minister looked contemptuous. "If acceleration fatigue is all that's worrying you, let me assure you, my dear captain, that we had anticipated that. His respiration and heart action will be watched carefully. We are not entirely without imagination and forethought. After all, I've been out myself. I know how it feels. This man Smith must..." Captain Van Tromp decided that it was time to throw a tantrum. He could excuse it by his own fatigue, very real fatigue. He felt as if he had just landed on Jupiter, and he was smugly aware that even a high counselor could not afford to take too stiff a line with the commander of the first successful Martian expedition. So he interrupted with a snort of disgust. This man Smith, this man, can't you see that this is just what he is not? Eh? Smith is not a man. Huh? Explain yourself, Captain. Smith is not a man. He is an intelligent creature with the genes and ancestry of a man, but he is not a man. He is more a Martian than a man. Until we came along, he had never laid eyes on a human being. He thinks like a Martian. He feels like a Martian. He's been brought up by a race which has nothing in common with us. Why, they don't even have sex. Smith has never laid eyes on a woman. Still hasn't if my orders have been carried out. He's a man by ancestry, a Martian by environment. Now, If you want to drive him crazy and waste that treasure trove of scientific information, call in your fat-headed professors and let them badger him. Don't give him a chance to get well and strong and used to this madhouse planet. Just go ahead and squeeze him like an orange. It's no skin off me. I've done my job. The ensuing silence was broken smoothly by Secretary General Douglas himself. And a good job too, Captain. Your advice will be weighed, and be assured that we will not do anything hastily. If this man, or man-Martian, Smith, needs a few days to get adjusted, I'm sure that science can wait. So take it easy, Pete. Let's table this part of the discussion, gentlemen, and get on to other matters. Captain Van Tromp is tired. One thing won't wait, said the Minister for Public Information. Jock? If we don't show the man from Mars in the stereotanks pretty shortly, you'll have riots on your hand, Mr. Secretary. You exaggerate, Jock. Mars stuff is in the news, of course. Me decorating the captain and his brave crew tomorrow. That had better be. Captain Van Tromp telling of his experiences after a night's rest, of course, Captain. The minister shook his head. No good, Jock? The public expected the expedition to bring back at least one real live Martian for them to gawk at. Since they didn't, we need Smith and need him badly. Live Martians? Secretary General Douglas turned to Captain Von Trump. You have movies of Martians, haven't you? Thousands of feet. There's your answer, Jock. When the live stuff gets thin, trot on the movies of Martians. The people will love it. Now, Captain, about this possibility of extraterritoriality, you say the Martians were not opposed to it? Well, no, sir, but they were not for it either. I don't follow you. Captain Van Tromp chewed his lip. Sir, I don't know just how to explain it. Talking with a Martian is something like talking with an echo. You don't get any argument, but you don't get any results either. Semantic difficulty? Perhaps you ought to have brought what's-his-name, your semantician, with you today. Or is he waiting outside? Mahmoud, sir. No, Dr. Mahmoud is not well. A slight nervous breakdown, sir. Van Tromp reflected that his being dead drunk was the moral equivalent thereof. Space happy? A little, perhaps. These damn groundhogs. Well, fetch him around when he's feeling himself. I imagine this young man Smith should be of help as an interpreter. Perhaps, said Van Tromp said doubtfully. This young man Smith was busy at the moment just staying alive. His body, unbearably compressed and weakened by the strange shape of space in this unbelievable place, was at last somewhat relieved by the softness of the nest in which the others had placed him. He dropped the effort of sustaining it and turned his third level to his respiration and heartbeat. He saw at once that he was about to consume himself. His lungs were beating almost as hard as they did at home. His heart was racing to distribute the influx, all in an attempt to cope with the squeezing of space, and this in a situation in which he was smothered by a poisonously rich and dangerously hot atmosphere. He took immediate steps. When his heart rate was down to 20 per minute and his respiration almost imperceptible, he set them at that and watched himself long enough to assure himself that he would not inadvertently discorporate while his attention was elsewhere. When he was satisfied that they were running properly, he set a tiny portion of his second level on guard and withdrew the rest of himself. It was necessary to review the configurations of these many new events in order to fit them to himself, then cherish and praise them, lest they swallow him up. Where should he start? When he had left home, enfolding these others who were now his own nestlings, or simply at his arrival in this crushed space, he was suddenly assaulted by the lights and sounds of that arrival, feeling it again with mind-shaking pain. No, he was not yet ready to cherish and embrace that configuration. Back, beyond his first sight of these others who were now his own. Back even before the healing which had followed his first grokking of the fact that he was not as his nestling brothers. Back to the nest itself. None of his thinkings had been in earth symbols. Simple English he had freshly learned to speak, but much less easily than a Hindu uses it to trade with a Turk. Smith used English as one might use a code book, with tedious and imperfect translation for each symbol. Now his thoughts, pure Martian abstractions from 500,000 years of wildly alien culture, traveled so far from any human experience as to be utterly untranslatable. In the adjoining room, an intern, Dr. Tad Thaddeus, was playing cribbage with Tom Meacham, Smith's special nurse. Thaddeus had one eye on his dials and meters and both eyes on his cards. Nevertheless, he noted every heartbeat of his patient. When a flickering light changed from 92 pulsations per minute to less than 20, he pushed the cards aside, jumped to his feet, and hurried into Smith's room with Meacham at his heels. The patient floated in the flexible skin of the hydraulic bed. He appeared to be dead. Thaddeus swore briefly and snapped, "Get Dr. Nelson." Meacham said, "Yes, sir," and added, "How about the shock ear, Doc? He's far gone." "Get Dr. Nelson!" The nurse rushed out. The intern examined the patient as closely as possible, but refrained from touching him. He was still doing so when an older doctor came in, walking with the labored awkwardness of a man long in space and not yet adjusted to high gravity. "Well, doctor?" Patient's respiration, temperature, and pulse dropped suddenly. About 2 minutes ago, sir." "What have you done for him or to him?" "Nothing, sir. Your instructions?" "Good." Nelson looked Smith over briefly, then studied the instruments back of the bed, twins of those in the watchroom. "Let me know if there's any change." He started to leave. Thaddeus looked startled. "But doctor," he broke off. Nelson said grimly, "Go ahead, doctor. What's your diagnosis?" I don't wish to sound off about your patient, sir." "Never mind. I asked for your diagnosis." "Very well, sir. Shock. Atypical, perhaps," he hedged, "but shock, leading to termination." Nelson nodded. "Reasonable enough, but this isn't a reasonable case. Relax, son. I've seen this patient in this condition 6 times during the trip back. It doesn't mean a thing. Watch." Nelson lifted the patient's right arm. Let it go. It stayed where he had left it. "Catalepsy?" asked Thaddeus. "Call it that if you'd like. Calling a tail a leg doesn't make it one. Don't worry about it, doctor. There is nothing typical about this case. Just keep him from being bothered and call me if there's any change." He replaced Smith's arm. When Nelson had left, Thaddeus took one more look at the patient, shook his head, and joined Meacham in the watchroom. Meacham picked up his cards and said, "Crib?" "No." Meacham waited, then added, "Doc, if you ask me, that one in there is a case for the basket before morning." "No one asked you." "My mistake." "Get out and have a cigarette with the guards. I want to think." Meacham shrugged and left. Thaddeus opened a bottom drawer, took out a bottle, and poured himself a dose intended to help his thinking. Meacham joined the guards in the corridor. They straightened up, then saw who it was, and relaxed. The taller Marine said, "Howdy, pal. What was the excitement just now?" "Nothing much. The patient just had quintuplets, and we were arguing about what to name them. Which one of you monkeys has got a butt and a light?" The other Marine dug a pack of cigarettes out of a pocket. "How you fixed for suction?" he said bleakly. "Just middlin', thanks." Meacham stuck the cigarette in his face and talked about it. "Honest to God, gentlemen, I don't know anything about this patient. I wish I did." "What's the idea of those orders about absolutely no women? Is he some kind of sex maniac?" "Not that I know of. All I know is that they brought him in from the Champion and said that he has to have absolute quiet." "The Champion," the first Marine said. "Of course. That accounts for it." "Accounts for what?" "It stands to reason. He ain't had any. He ain't seen any. He ain't touched any for months. And he's sick, see? If he was to lay hands on any, they're afraid he'd kill himself." He blinked and blew out a deep breath. "I'll bet I would, under similar circumstances. No wonder they don't want no bims around him." All right, so I didn't finish the chapter. It does go on for a little bit longer, and I will continue next time. Thank you for joining me on our Science Fiction Saturday. And if you're interested in more serious topics that actually pertain to life coaching, we have a couple of playlists, one on adult children of emotionally immature parents, and the other one on romantic relationships. I do hope that you like and subscribe, and you check out our other videos as well. Take care. Have a great one.